Oh, hello. Welcome back. Today's episode, people trying to screw their customers. I know, it's kind of depressing, isn't it? Let's go ahead and start with Sony. Yeah, Sony's a good company, right? Well, Sony has had to agree to pay millions to settle the PlayStation 3 Linux debacle. And, well, here's basically how it worked. When the PlayStation 3 first came out, Sony advertised it and said, wow, this device is so fantabulous, it will run other operating systems, quote unquote, which means Linux. Because you're not going to put Windows on this thing, right? And so there were people who bought it specifically to have an inexpensive little Linux computer. Um, you know, because I think this is like, it was a fairly powerful little piece of equipment. When they make these consoles, often they take a loss on the hardware, and the idea is that they are going to make it up by selling a bunch of software and other things that they license. And so they're willing to take a bath on the hardware, but that's not so great if a whole bunch of people are buying up the consoles and putting some nasty free operating system like Linux, penguins all over the place, and they're not buying those expensive PlayStation games and they're just using it as a computer. Yeah, Sony wasn't liking that. So a mandatory update came out, and it went into the firmware, and it blocked the ability to run any operating system other than Sony's. That's, of course, after they sold a whole bunch of these, of course. And Sony defended this by saying, well, yeah, we totally did that. Thanks for buying it, by the way, sucker. But our EULA allows us to make changes whenever we want, without any notice, blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, here's the problem. You marketed under the auspices of being able to run multiple operating systems, and then you took that away after you got the money. Sound like bait and switch to you? It does to me. And apparently, the courts are like, you know what, come on, dude. It's time to pay. Well, okay, don't get too worked up. If you happen to be one of those PlayStation owners that, bought one for the purposes of running Linux on it, and there is a specific range which that you had to buy it in order to take advantage of this. I'll go ahead and link an article regarding this in the description of this video. But even if you can attest that you were one of those people that were terribly affected and injured by this, your payout is about $55. Yeah, I know, fantabulous, right? All right, so if you want an extra $50 and you installed Linux on a PlayStation 3, hey, maybe there's some money for you. The lawyers get millions, of course, for bringing the lawsuit. I think they got like over $2 million. My gosh, I got to be a lawyer. I put on a tie and go sue people. This seemed like pretty much a slam dunk thing. It's like, here you go, buy my little console. You can run whatever you want on it. Psych! Yeah, that sounds like it wasn't too bad a case. I know that Sony tied it up in the courts for years. But, you vote with your dollars. You really shouldn't. This is a reason why I don't have a PlayStation, because I don't like this bait and switch nonsense. And I just assume that they will do anything they can get away with. At least the court is making them pay a token fee, but it's not going to curb Sony's behavior. Microsoft does stuff like this too with their Xbox One. Again, could be why I don't have an Xbox One. Maybe. All right. Well, in other entertainment news, shafting customers, MSI and ASUS. Normally I like these guys, but are they in cahoots with NVIDIA? Okay, I'll back up a bit. Recently, NVIDIA debuted their new GTX 1080 graphics processing units. Big card, very expensive, designed to offer gamers the ultimate gaming performance ever made, ever known to mankind. And, VR too, because, VR. The problem is that, Of course, NVIDIA demonstrates this amazing card that can do amazing things and be amazingly cool. And no reviewer on Earth has so far been able to duplicate what AMD, what am I saying, AMD, NVIDIA demonstrated in their event. And I kind of mentioned this in one of the other videos where, every time the card that they demonstrated was actually overclocked. So it's being run faster than it was actually designed to. And how suitable an individual chip or card is for overclocking varies. It's called a silicon lottery. Some chips, just by luck, are better than others in terms of heat tolerance and other stuff. So you usually have to get several and then try to find one that does it. But, you're paying for multiple cards. Well, unless you're NVIDIA and you run the chip factory. So imagine some, dummy who's in the back, and his job is to go through chip after chip after chip after chip. He's like, nope, 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 hell no, help, no, 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 oh, maybe, here's the one that we can overclock like crazy, and everybody will think this is the baseline performance for this card. Well, okay, so NVIDIA did that. And I thought, well, okay, that's just typical marketing stuff. It's par for the course. Take everything with like a mouthful of salt. Don't believe the hype. Unfortunately, it looks like the board partners are doing it now too. So both MSI and ASUS have been found to have delivered review units which are overclocked out of the box. They don't say they are, and that's not their default configuration that they'll be when the consumers buy them. You and I will buy cards that'll be clocked slower than the ones the reviewers received. Wonder how that happened. Overclocked right out of the box. And they didn't say anything. They were going to let the reviewers just play with him and say, wow, this card is amazing. Well, fortunately, Tech Power Up took a look and they're like, hey, these clock frequencies don't look right. I wonder how that happened. So, all right. Now we got a couple of Yahoo companies that, not affiliated with Yahoo itself, but just, it's an expression, Yahoos, that thought they were going to pull a fast one. And they're like, oh, look how fast our card is. Maybe you might infer that all our cards are this fast, but you'd be wrong. Yeah. I don't appreciate that. To be honest, I was really psyched about the GTX 1080 coming out. I was planning on eating ramen for a year if I had to in order to afford one of these things. But it seems like there's a bit of a shell game going on, a bit of deception at every turn. With NVIDIA, I could understand. It's their marketing thing. They're going to show you the best of the best. It's an unrealistic scenario, but now the board partners are doing it. And it just makes you go, what's going on here? Is this like a concerted, coordinated effort to paint a false picture of the performance of these devices? For what they cost, I should know exactly what these cards are capable of and how they will perform in a real-world scenario. I'm not going to fork out, $600, $700, $800 without being absolutely certain as to what I expect this thing to do. This stuff is just hurting your brand, NVIDIA. You shouldn't be doing this. Your board partners should not be doing this. And if your board partners are doing this at your behest, at your direction, man, yeah, just light your credibility on fire. Maybe it'll keep you warm this winter. It's a bad idea. It's a very bad idea. I don't know. Now I have to assume all the claims about your products are baloney. I'm going to have to see a whole lot of corroborating tests. It used to be that you could go to a site and say, okay, look, they got some benchmarks, but, if we're going to play the little game of, sending out, overclock cards and whatnot, I'm going to have to see it corroborated 5 times, maybe 10 times from different sites before I'll believe the numbers, because I don't want to get ripped off. I don't want to fork out a whole bunch of money on a GPU, only to find out it does not perform the way I expected it to. In fact, I'm not even jazzed up about the 1080 anymore at all. I'm looking more forward to the RX 480 from the Radeon folks than I am from NVIDIA now. And that's a big reversal. I mean, you know, if AMD, to their, hopefully credit, has just basically published the real numbers and not bothered to fudge anything, just grabbed a card out of the stack without cherry picking one for their demonstrations, they're going to make a lot of money. If those numbers are anywhere near reality that we've seen so far for the RX 480, they're going to kill it. For $200, or $300 even, and they equivalent the GTX 900 series from NVIDIA, I see a big fortune in AMD's future. Mark my words. Mark my words. People don't like to be hoodwinked. It's not the way to sell stuff, NVIDIA. And ASUS, and MSI, come on, shame on you guys. Now I don't want to buy your stuff because I don't know if you're going to be truthful. All right, so we have, two companies that I guess don't like their customers and they're doing bad stuff. But you know what? Never to be outdone is the evil fruit empire. Everybody loves their iPhones, right? And we just talked about how Apple doesn't like you to fix those things, or iPods, or Macs, or anything else. Once it breaks, oh, you should just buy another one, sucker. Well, here's a new innovation from Apple. Remember that 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, which has been on all these devices since the dawn of electronics time, which is like decades. Well, Apple is thinking, you know what, maybe that should just go away. And you're like, what? What am I supposed to plug my headphones into? And they're like, well, you won't use your headphones. You'll use the ones we tell you to. Oh, and our headphones are not going to be cheap. Oh, no. If it's got the Apple seal of approval on it, that's the Apple approval process is based more on price than quality, at least from my own experience. So, Apple is telling people, yeah, the whole point of this is to assure customers of a quality experience and make sure that it's preserved through all aspects so that, these things should be enjoyed in concert. So if one of them is not up to par, our customers' experience suffers. I know, it's so hard to say that without laughing. It's basically, if our customer hasn't paid through the nose, if they aren't considering selling their blood plasma to afford our products, we haven't done our job. They should be thinking about some way to ambush a guy in an alley to steal his kidneys to sell on the black market to be able to afford our stuff. Then we have done our job to maximize shareholder profit. That's really what this is about. So, if you like your headphones and you still buy one of these Apple devices once they take this headphone jack away and try to force you with one of their really expensive headsets, you got nothing to complain about. Vote with your dollars. I don't buy that Apple stuff for this exact reason. Just nonsense. Good grief. I mean, I don't mean to bang on Apple like constantly, but Apple just is like, come on, Snow, bring it. Tell everybody about this stuff. I'm like, oh, come on. Can we go one day without Apple just messing up? I mean, good grief. No, unfortunately we can't. They love it. I have no idea why. Oh, but they don't love you. They love your money, but they don't love you. And they wonder why those Samsung phones sell so well. Samsung should send Apple a fruit basket, maybe like a truckload of them. I would guess that most of the Samsung Galaxy sales are due to people who got sick of Apple. Guys, if you just give your customers what they want and don't be a dick about it, people will buy your stuff. How did we forget this? Greedy companies.